My term as Virginia's Poet Laureate is quickly coming to an end, so I thought while I had some time left, I'd pay tribute to one of Virginia's most distinguished poets, Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe lived 2 centuries ago, but I think he's still relevant. He wrote about the sort of crises we're experiencing with the pandemic. I have a vivid memory of discovering the power of Poe's works. I was visiting my grandparents in northwestern Connecticut. My grandfather was a writer. He always tried to get me to read writers he admired, and he admired Poe. So he took me to the local public library and signed out a collection of Poe's stories. I was supposed to be sleeping in the room above his garage. I took my book up to the room and I started reading some of the stories, like The Telltale Heart, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Murders in the Rue Morgue. As you can imagine, those stories didn't make good bedtime reading. I got very spooked. I was scared. So I climbed down the stairs. Luckily, I found my grandfather reading in his living room, and he managed to calm me down and convince me to go back to bed. Later on, I was intrigued to find out that Poe had been born in New England, and then he went to Virginia. He had also been in the Army, and he was also at a military college, West Point. As it turned out, I was born in New England. I moved to Virginia. I had experiences at a military college, the Citadel, the military college of Charleston, South Carolina, where I wore an Army uniform as a captain, and I was made a member of the South Carolina Unorganized Militia. When I was at the Citadel, one of my colleagues told me that Poe had been stationed at a fort, I think it was Fort Moultrie in Sullivan's Island, a short distance from Charleston, and that he had visited Charleston. Occasionally, I thought Poe's ghost was haunting the area, and on one particular occasion, I felt I was reliving one of Poe's nightmarish stories. This was when I traveled back to New England for Christmas around 1985, and when I returned to my apartment at the Citadel, I realized it had been invaded by rats. Later, I was told by a biology professor these were Norwegian wharf rats. They were very durable. They had arrived in Charleston on Norwegian freighters. Well, I had a long battle with the Norwegian wharf rats. I had a number of sleep-deprived nights that reminded me of that first night when I was reading Poe's stories, and I had a very hard time sleeping. So I wrote a poem about the Norwegian wharf rats at the Citadel, the military college, and I thought I'd read it, again, to pay tribute to Edgar Allan Poe. I opened the door to the boxed radiator, jumped from the shadow, rushing for the dark, its claws flinging rubble from a pipe like sparks. Where had it gone? Earlier, it had shinnied up a drain in the kitchen, scrawled black graffiti across my sink and counters, chewed a nozzle off a mustard bottle, and scattered dark rice over every inch of my table. That night, I woke to teeth gnawing the grain out of my bedroom floorboards, dragged my mattress to a different room, and waited for dawn to whiten the Citadel's turrets. For 3 days, an exterminator filled a dish with blue pellets. For 3 days, rats stared from the dark under the radiator and trembled, dazed eyes lit with poison. On the 3rd night, a policeman brought a trap. I woke to the clang of steel hitting steel, teeth clicking against bars, bodies hurtling into doors. Locked in a bag of chloroform for an hour, the rats kept gasping, just as I did that 4th night when I waited for silence after the last notes of a bugle playing taps in the cadets' barracks. but heard instead the telltale teeth and claws cutting plaster from the wall by my head. For days, every time wind rattled screens in my door, every time combat boots scuffed the street, every time rifle bolts clicked above the parade ground's dust, I heard them tunneling toward me through the dark.